Hey everybody, this is Perch. Yeah, please indulge me for a minute. I know this isn't the most fascinating topic here, but it's something that came into my mind a little bit as I've been doing these retrospectives, which I thoroughly enjoy. I don't know. I hope you guys do too. I know that when we hit on a comic that you really love and we're less than flattering, it's probably a little hard to hear, but it's I don't want to say cathartic. That's not the right word, but it's enjoyable going into that depth. And one of the things I notice is when you get really detailed and you get really analytical about a comic, it often sounds and feels negative. The reality is, the Astonishing X-Men, this retrospective we did, even though there were plenty of complaints about it and issues that were pointed out and things that make absolutely no sense, and we kind of, in many cases, talk about that this part of the comic is terrible. There's still massive parts of that comic that are better than a lot of other runs. I was trying to think. I was kind of thinking about this of all places in the grocery stores. I'm in there like picking up food, and I'm thinking of the Astonishing X-Men, for example. Where does it sit? And like in my mind, I often do this with customers as well, and I find that it's a helpful approach of like think about a medium line, and above that line means net positive, and below that line means net negative. Uh, and if you think just generally like 50% of the comics are going to be in the positive camp, 50% are going to be in the negative camp, where does this one fall? So Astonishing X-Men, is it in the better 50% or the worst 50% of X-Men titles? And I think for me, it's despite kind of everything you heard in that retrospective and maybe some of the complaints, it probably is still it's in the middle to positive side of series. There's lots of things, including the event that is I guess when this video ends, or when this video airs, it will be over. I mean, bring on another Astonishing X-Men run by Joss Whedon over Ten of Swords. I'll take it tomorrow. But it's interesting how when you really get into details around comics, I think you come off as more critical. Is just kind of my observation, and it fits because I don't know how many times, and maybe this will ring true for you. You're in a comic shop and there's some people like really going into some details about a comic. There's a conversation that is happening that is really kind of intense about, this character or that character. And have you ever had, or maybe you've been this person, you hear this or somebody makes a comment, man, you guys hate everything. And the people who are talking kind of blink and look and like, we do? I don't think we do. Wait, no, we don't. And then that starts a new argument. But it is interesting because I think right when you're in the depth of really going into that stuff, it sounds negative. I've made this comment before, but I produce roughly 10,000 videos a month. So, it's easy. Most of the people listening to this probably haven't heard this before, but I enjoy more comics. I enjoy most comics, almost all of them. The complaints that you see on social media about, the comic industry has to blow up and I hate it all and it's all trash and woke apocalypse and all the rest. Despite all those comments, I generally find something I can enjoy. And I also, and maybe this is just being a retailer, I think you could put me in front of a room, you could put a comic in front of me, and you could say, all right, defend it or rip it apart. And I could probably do both pretty easily. The really magical comics for me are the ones that I can't come up with a compelling thing that's bad about them. And there are some. There definitely are some that I really struggle. I've used this example before, so it's a recent review that Punisher Return to Big Nothing original graphic novel story. I have a hard time coming up with complaints. I can do it, but they're very shallow. It's hard for me because it's a well executed story. I think that there's a very, very small handful of books that fall into that category. But I'll tell you, you could put me in a room and I could vigorously defend Civil War. I could defend many comics being absolutely good, great comics, and give lots of good examples of them. And then I could also, you could put me in front of other things and like, you want me to tear apart, the Dark Knight year one? I can do that. It's easy to do. The challenge for me always is when I hit a comic that it's just I can't come up with any reasons it's good. I can't. Nothing works. And for me, that was a little bit like you heard it in my voice when I was reviewing the Iron Man 2020 series at the beginning of the year. It's like, I find myself in the reviews saying things like how Pete Woods is a good guy. he tries hard. I feel bad for him having to draw this. You know, it's like that's not a positive comment. By the way, all that was just reinforced so much in that 616 documentary. It's like if I felt bad for Pete Woods or hell the letter, I hadn't even thought of that poor letter, and now I feel really bad for all kinds of that creative team. But most comics I can find something good about. Almost all of them. And sometimes it's not really what the person intends. Like sometimes the comic is coming up with unintentional comedy, and that's very true. But most of the time there's something to love about it. And I think it is one way that I think I'm different from, maybe some people who are on YouTube who talk about this stuff a lot is I still have a lot of optimism for this industry and for the comics. And even when the comics are chugging out and they're not very good, I can still find some humor or some positive in there somewhere. It does exist. And that's if I can get personal for a minute, that's unusual for me. People who know me in real life, I'm a negative person. I am definitely a glass half empty kind of person. And so it's, comic books are one of those things that I love. And so it's every now and then, I'll get complaints from both sides or all sides. It's not even two sides anymore. It's many sides. It is whenever somebody says something like, oh, you just hate comics. It's like, no, to the contrary. Comics are one of those bright spots in life. And nobody in their right mind would go through all this as a retailer or as somebody invested in comics. Nobody would do it if they didn't have a deep love for comics, and I do. I have a deep, deep love for comics, and sometimes that causes me to make bad decisions. I do, I do reviews or shows or things I shouldn't because I'm suckered by the love for comics. Causes me to make comments off the cuff from time to time, but I do love them. I love the industry. I love everything it is, and it's such a big industry. And the funny part about it is, and I guess this is the advice I've given to people. You can take it or not. Where when you really start to feel like nothing is for you, you just got to start zigzagging in different directions. There is something out there. It was funny on the stream I did last week. There was I put up the comics coming out this week, and I think Ash was on as a guest, and Ash is like, yeah, this is the month's comic. I'm like, no, this is the week's comic. This is a comics for the week, or maybe it was Brian who made that comment. But at any rate, we're looking at this. It's like there's like 180, 200 comics, and this isn't even getting into manga that are coming out this week. So and also crowdfunding. We didn't even count the crowdfunding books out there that you can get into. The point is there is something for you out there, and I'm granted it shouldn't be as hard as it is sometimes for people to find something they love. It shouldn't be with all that content. I think that that it represents a failure of the publishers to properly kind of describe what it is they're doing. And I think it's a failure of there being a good, indexing service or news service or somebody kind of pulling it all together. There'd be no money in it, but imagine a site where you could go in and you could like type in a couple keywords of your interest, and it's like, hey, the comics coming out this month that seem to fit those tags are these ones. You should go for these, and at least narrow it down a little bit because it's out there. I still believe, even though I've done videos kind of the contrary, that the best comic that I'll ever read is still out there. I haven't read it yet. Maybe it's in the past or maybe it's in the future. I don't know, but it's something I haven't stumbled across. It's really going to speak to me or be really, really powerful. And so, I would like to think the majority of people who put up with this nonsense, I mean, Christ, it's 3 videos a day, and clearly I am not, Mr. Entertainment of putting out videos of crazy hot takes of things. I try not to anyway. If you're sticking around to this point, then chances are you love this business as much as I do, or at least you're in there. And I think that love is an interesting thing because when you love something, it causes strong emotions, and sometimes those emotions are positive, and sometimes they're negative. A lot of people mistake a lot of the negative comments people make for just being hateful and spiteful and bitter or trolling or whatever it happens to be. But in many cases, some of those comments are made out of love. There's lots of people who make comments bemoaning the current state of the comic industry or how people are treated in the comic industry or what they're doing to certain characters, maybe their favorite characters, and they're really angry about it. But the source of that anger is love. It's love for comics. It's love for this business. It's love for what it creates. And you hate to see it hurt. You don't want to see something you love, you know, treated poorly. At least in your eyes, you don't want to. And that's where a lot of it comes from. And I have to feel like a lot of the disagreements and arguments and fighting and pettiness and all around would help if we could all recognize that it is coming usually from a place of love. Sometimes a place of boredom. I think love can become boredom, and then you're just throwing crap around for see who will land on and what you can do with that. But at any rate, sorry for the little rambling is not the right word, but anyway, wanted to get these thoughts off my chest. Yeah, every now and then I do this. You get one out of every 300 videos or something like that. So hey, cheers. Thanks for listening.